Everybody likes a good Mercedes. This one had a battery drain and had it on the charger overnight. We've already started dropping a little bit of voltage. Let's see what the amp clamp is showing here. Yep, about a 5 amp draw. Let's see what the thermal camera shows. That's a DVD player. Let's see. That's producing some heat. That one's producing some heat. And the radio is producing some heat. This ought to be a fun one. What's going on, everybody? We got ourselves a Mercedes with a parasitic drain. And I don't even know what it is. I've not scanned it. I've not done anything other than get it in the shop and get the battery charged. So let's get a scan tool on this thing, get a scan on it and see if we got any codes or anything like that. See if we can figure out a direction to go with it. We already seen with the thermal camera that basically the entertainment system is kind of on, Everything's off, but it's definitely producing some heat, so it's drawing some current. We got 5 amps being drawn on the system. That's a pretty good bit. So let's get into it. And if it sounds a little echoey on the microphone, well, it's because we are cleaning the shop out. We are in the process of moving, and I've got to get this thing figured out before we can leave. So let's see what we can figure out. So we got the key on this thing, and it's got an air suspension system. And for some reason with the key on, it is running the pump all the time. And this is a prime example of why you need a battery maintainer. Look at this, 30 amps just to key on. I mean, we're having to hold it at 14 volts just to kind of help with the current. If I lowered this, the current would actually be a little higher. But man, 30 amps with just a key on, that's gonna kill a battery super fast. But I went through, done a pre-scan, had a bunch of voltage codes in it, so I cleared it, and this is all that has come back. So we've got a lot of grayed out modules that might not matter. By the way, this is a 2009 GL, and it is a diesel. But we've got in the front SAM, left rear door motor short circuit to ground. It's set as stored, and then the rear says the right rear door short to ground. I'm not sure if it's because I've got both the doors open, but like I latched them both. I don't know if it's a fake code, like because it's just how I've got everything open, but latched, I'm not real sure. And then we got this, no signal from component S20, power window and outside mirror adjustment switch group driver. That's a mouthful. I mean, that is setting in the door control module, and I'm guessing it's talking about this, but I mean, it seems to be working. Both mirrors folded in, so I'm not really sure what that code's all about. It also says stored, and it won't clear either. These codes cleared and came back after I started it, so I'm not real sure. But like from our preliminary with the infrared camera, the thermal camera, we ought to be looking at infotainment system stuff, and it's all green except the display is blank. The radio does work, but the screen doesn't do anything. It's just white out, like. So not real sure there, But either way, it doesn't seem like we've got any kind of actual issues. So I'm going to turn it off, unplug the scan tool. I've got all the doors to where I can get in and out of the car now. I'm just gonna let everything go back to sleep. Let it sit here for a few hours while I go do some other stuff and come back and see what's going on with it. I'm gonna leave the battery maintainer on. I'll probably lower the voltage down to about 12.8 or so it's normal battery voltage. And we're just gonna let it sit here for a while and come back and recheck it. Also, if you've got the hood open, you've got to trip the hood latches. This right here is a micro switch in here, so you need to trip that so it thinks the hood is closed as well. All right, got the key out of the vehicle. You can see the cluster is still on. You do need to open and re-latch a door so it thinks you exited the vehicle, and we'll let this kind of go to sleep and see what happens with it. It's actually the next day, and the charger here is still putting out current, so we still got a current draw. And I just quickly hooked the picoscope up, and our network is definitely trying to go to sleep and getting woke back up. Now this is actually just the DLC, and this has a gateway module, so something is actually just waking the gateway module back up, or it is waking things back up. Here's a little diagram of it. We've got 6 and 14 down here on the DLC. Let me zoom you in here. And it shows that CAN bus actually runs to the fuel pumps and a fuel pump control module. That's kind of weird, before they go to the gateway module. And then the gateway module then splits out and has CAN B, C, and D, it looks like. But there's also like D coming back out here to something. So I'm not sure if internally if that's tied together or not. But we need to get to this gateway. It's under the driver's seat. We need to get to this thing and see if we can separate the network out and see which one's actually awake and causing our issue. So I had to move this thing outside. We're gonna be taking the lift down today, and I noticed something a little strange, and we'll see if we can reduplicate this. Put it in drive. That right there. It thinks the hatch is open. Hatch is shut. But could the hatch be part of our issue? Possibly. If you remember the Tahoe video, the 2022 Tahoe, I think it was, or 2020 Tahoe, we had a latch issue, kind of, on that parasitic drain. And maybe this one's something similar. So let's get into this and just kind of see if we can narrow down what's going on here. Well, it has been a little over a week since I was last working on this. I'm a little rusty where I was at with the last clip in the video. So if I repeat something, sorry. But still working on this Mercedes, and I think where I left off was I noticed when I was driving it, just moving it around, we had a rear hatch indicator pop up on the cluster there. And we know the data networks are staying awake. If I remember right, we seen that they were trying to go to sleep, but then they'd get woke right back up. And yeah, I think I narrowed it down to infotainment bus is the one waking back up, making the powertrain come back on. I think, I'm not real sure. I know I was heading towards the gateway module to basically separate the networks apart and see which one's staying awake and stuff. I'm not going to focus too much on the hatch. If we end up with the hatch, you know, we've kind of had that direction anyway from the indicator, but I don't want to go chasing that just yet. I want to let the actual issue lead me to that, if that's what the problem is. Like I want the data to basically take me there. We've got a process, we're going to follow the process, and right now that is getting to the gateway module, which is under the seat, and disconnecting that to where we can separate all the networks apart and pinpoint which network is actually staying awake. Tried to see if I could just get some access down here, but it's all under here. This whole seat's got to come out. We've got to lift the carpet up, get it out of the way. It's not going to be very fun getting to this. This gateway module is buried. It's like all the way down in the bottom of this thing. So let me get the seat out of this thing, get to the gateway, and get the Pico scope back out and set up. Also, if you hear a lot of road noise, well, it's because we've moved shops in the process, and there's a highway right here basically. So yeah, until we can get the inside of the shop kind of organized and get all of our stuff situated, I might have to deal with the road noise a little bit. So sorry about that, but let me get this seat out. I got the seat out of here and got to the gateway. This thing's kind of a booger to get to. It's down on this little plastic bracket here. That's the amplifier, and if you look right there, there is some water down there. But all this is covered with this nice piece of plastic, so what little bit of water that is down in here, it had to have rolled around everything. Nothing got dripped on, and it's not really been too high in there. You can kind of see that middle bracket right there. It's just barely been up on the bracket a little bit. So nothing's actually been submerged that I see yet. But anyway, I've got 2 channels on the Pico scope. On the diagram here, I've got all data's aftermarket diagram pulled up, just because it puts all the networks into one picture. Just makes it a lot easier to show you guys what's going on here. So right here we've got our gateway module, and you can see there's a CAN D, a CAN B, a CAN C, and another CAN D right here. Well, one of these CAN Ds comes down to our data link connector, which have our fuel pump. I guess it could have a couple different options for fuel pump. We're diesel. I'm not sure which one this has. Don't really care yet. But we've got fuel pumps there and the DLC connector. And that one is going into pins 4 and 5. Now keep in mind, this is CAN D. All right. We also have another CAN D up here, which is also a gray and white, and it goes over here to a emergency call system control unit. All right. So by the way that looks, it looks like those are just bridged internally in the gateway module. So we got 3 CAN lines here, 3 different ones, a B, a C, and a D. But we're just gonna start with 2 channels right now. If I need to, I'll go grab another set of leads. But we're back probed into CAN C and CAN B here. CAN B runs over to what they call a voltage distributor connector. Think about like the newer Chryslers that have the star connector. That's kind of what this is. So that diagram is actually in another picture that shows us all that. What we're focused on now is just which network do we need to go after. So we've got that voltage distributor, and then we've also got a passenger side voltage distributor for CAN C. All right. And for my picoscope leads, I've got channel 2 here is in the green and white, which is CAN C high side, and the channel A is in this brown with a red stripe. Not sure if you guys will be able to see that, but brown with a red stripe there is channel A. So let's go over to the picoscope and see what is happening with their networks. And that's a little bit strange. As you can see, it tries to go to sleep and wakes back up, but this channel A is very strange. Yeah, let's stop it when it turns back on here. All right. If we zoom in right over here, this is where both things are on, and you can see our red channel here is going to sleep. Let me turn off the blue. See, our red trace here is trying to go to sleep. All right, you can see it drops down to a little under a volt. It gets down to 700 millivolts before it gets woke back up, or it is turning back on right over here. And you can see our bias voltage here, it gets a little wonky when modules first start waking up. I'm not too concerned about that. Modules don't really care about the bias voltage. They care about seeing the data packet. They're comparing the two basically. So if we still have enough of a voltage swing from one side to the other side, the module's still going to know what the message is. So the bias voltage is really only there to kind of aid in diagnostics and things like that. It does do some noise rejection type stuff, noise canceling type stuff, but not really too concerned with this just yet. I'm more concerned with this blue channel. Let's turn this back on to 5 volts here, and yeah, it is swinging a lot more than the 1.5 volts that it should, and the bias voltage seems to be at ground. That's a little strange. You can see right here it's basically biased at ground and is swinging all the way up to 5 volts. And if we zoom in right over here, you can see, before I zoom in there, you can see that it is staying awake longer than the red trace is here. It's staying awake, turning off, and then turning back on. So which one is happening first, blue or red? Well, if we zoom in real close here, we can see the blue channel just has a ton of activity going on. Let's zoom in a little tighter, and we can clearly see the blue trace here is having a ton of activity happen before the red channel turns back on. When I first seen this, I was like, I wonder if my lead is messed up. If maybe, because I've got one of these blue leads where the ground side is messed up in the connector. It'll do weird patterns like this. But if I take my red trace here and touch it in to the same, nope, it overlays perfect and has the exact same pattern. Let me pin it in here so you can see what I'm talking about. So we're in there. Let's pause this and we'll separate them a little bit. You see that? Exactly the same pattern, so it's not my lead. That CAN bus is doing something very strange. Okay, so let's line these back up again. I now want to know, what's the low side of that line doing? So let's unplug this here, and we're going to take and back probe the other side of this right here. If I can get it in there. These connectors are like super tight. And what's the voltage doing up here? Let's give this thing some more voltage here. It looks like this CAN line is swinging from 0 to 4.5 and from 5 down. And did you see that when it turned off? It went up to 12 volts. Let's see if we can get this in all in one screen again. No, it's gonna be off on a separate screen. Let's see if we can make all this happen in one screen. I want it to go to sleep, wake back up, all on one screen. There we go. You see this? This is, something's not right with this. I really don't think this CAN bus should be working like this. Let's zoom in over here where we're turning off. Everything's going to sleep. Let's take and turn this one off. You see how we're getting a full like 5 volts down to 1 volt? That's a 4 volt swing there. This is very strange CAN bus message. It's very strange. Let's turn this one back on to 10 volts. Actually, let's go 20 volts on each one of them. And we're going to see if we can't get both of these in one capture again. All right, so it's turning off. 12 volts. Back on. That is super strange. I just don't know. Like, I've never seen a CAN bus act like this. I have a hard time believing that is how it's supposed to be. Real hard time believing that is how it's supposed to be. And we're on the brown traces here. So let's go back over here to our wiring diagram. And that is CAN B. So let's go to this voltage distributor connector and see if maybe we can unplug a few things and get like a normal CAN bus pattern.